They say we have a choice in life whether to listen to our loudest desire or whether to listen to our deepest desire. One of the monks also once said to me, "Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now." And so I think one of the biggest challenges that we all face in our spiritual journey is the challenge of temptation. Because oftentimes we fall prey to those things which we know are not going to serve us in the ultimate sense, but we still succumb to them. And thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I'm really honored to be able to share something with you this afternoon. And our topic for today is very, very beautiful. Every journey matters. As we know, that's the motto of Transport for London. And today we're not going to just be talking about the human journeys. The human journeys are also important because we need to get from A to B, need to get to work to every day and get around the world. But we're going to talk a little bit deeper about perhaps a more profound and deeper journey that all of us are on. One famous writer says, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're not human beings on a spiritual journey. We're actually spiritual beings on a human journey. And so there is something profound that each one of us are meant to discover on this journey of life. And Coach has asked me today to share with you some of my own journey into monastic life. I don't consider my journey to be any more amazing than any of your journeys. I'm sure you all could equally be on this call sharing your experiences, but perhaps I'll try to share with you some of the main lessons that I've learned from my journey, and perhaps that will ignite something within you. I'll speak for about half an hour, 40 minutes, and then open it up and see what questions you may have. But before we do that, I'm just going to ask you all a question, and feel free to write your answer on the chat. I just want to share with you or ask you to share with all of us on the chat the name of someone who you consider a hero or a heroine, someone you look up to, someone who's a role model, someone whose life journey really moves you and who you've really learned something from that you'd like to imbibe in your own journey. So could I ask all of you just to make sure you all are there and you're alive and well? It would be great to hear from you. Thank you, Hardik, says Lord Krishna. Wonderful. It may be a spiritual person, it may be a political figure, it may be a sports person, it could be someone, it could be a family member, it could be a friend. It would be great to hear from all of you some of the heroes or heroic people that you feel have influenced your life. So Hardik says Lord Krishna, divinity. Kaush says a spiritual teacher, Srila Prabhupada. He was the one who, of course, founded the Hare Krishna movement in the West. Bhagwan Mahavir Rahul says, who obviously within the Jain tradition, Janish gives a shout out to his father. Of course, our parents have done so many heroic things. Andy Lord, Coach says the TFL commissioner, Sadhguru. Yes, Naden, thanks. Guru Nanak. Bharat says his uncle. Carl, Jesus Christ, wonderful. Yeah, so Jalaram, Baba. Yeah, so many spiritual figures. Mother Teresa, someone who did so much amazing work in the world. Yeah. I'm going to shift over to a PowerPoint, and I want you to remember some of these names, because what I want to share with you before I say anything about my own journey is a model in the world known as the hero's journey. Many of you may have heard of this before, that anyone who does something heroic in their life, and heroic just doesn't just mean the people who hit the headlines. Sometimes there are unsung heroes, unknown heroes, heroes that the world may not find out about. But every single heroic person who does something beautiful in their journey of life usually goes through a certain trajectory. And the reason we share this with people is to share with each of you that each of you can go on your own hero's journey and each of you can do something heroic in your life. But in the lives of all heroes, and remember the ones that you've put, Jesus, Sadhguru, Mahavir, Srila Prabhupada, anyone amazing that you've come out with, you'll see that they usually go through a similar journey. What's the journey of a hero? They say on the hero's journey, first, what happens at some point in that hero's life is there is a call to adventure. It may be a conversation, it may be an experience, an event, it may be something that they see in the world. It could be an influence, a person that comes into their life and challenges them. But something will happen in the hero's life, which is a call to adventure. And actually, it's said in every single person's life, there'll be something that happens which is a call to adventure. And what that call does is it invites you to journey into the unknown aspects of life. Most of us are just content to live within the known, live within the comfortable, live within what we know, what we've known for our whole life. But very, very few people are ready to journey into the unknown. But it's said that every hero has that quality, that they get a call to adventure and that they decide to walk and respond to that call of nature, adventure, call of nature, call of adventure, and not deny it. But then what happens when you take that road into the unknown is that that road is filled with different trials. There will be doubts. There will be deviations. There will be things which tell you to turn back. There will be a sense of trepidation and anxiety, and also maybe some sacrifices that you have to make. But the hero continues on as they walk through that road of trials. And then what happens in the hero's life is they come to a point of threshold. And this is the point of life in which they have to step into the unknown. And that takes a lot of courage, that takes a lot of bravery, and that takes a lot of inner strength. And when they cross the threshold, what happens is that it's very uncertain and sometimes it's very difficult. But in the hero's life, what will happen is that they will always get supernatural aid. In other words, divinity or nature, however you want to call it, will send people, will send different facilities which will help you, aid you on your journey. You're never on that journey alone. Someone will always come to help. And then in the hero's journey, there'll be temptations, challenges, doubts, as I mentioned. And then there'll be a point in the hero's journey where you just know that now I can't turn back. I've already gone down this route. It's gone already too far. Now I have to make and reach for my destination. And then what happens is that hero achieves something amazing. They find what they've always been looking for. They discover that that treasure they were walking towards. And then what they do is they come back into the world and they share that treasure with the rest of the world. Now, I want you to think of all of the heroes that you mentioned, and what you'll see is that all of them probably will go through most, if not all of these aspects. And this is a very, very powerful model because it helps us to also reflect in our life that if we want our journey in this world to be as amazing, as beautiful, as rewarding, as impactful as our own heroes, then we will also have to go through many of these aspects in the hero's journey. So Today I want to share with you a little bit of my own journey. I'm not a hero by any, I don't consider myself any better than anyone else, but I do want to share with you a little bit of my journey, because sometimes people ask, how did you become a monk? What made you do that? And what did you learn along the way? And so I'll just try to share through some pictures, the journey that I went on, and yeah, some of the insights that I received along the journey. So my journey starts in Wembley. On the picture on the left here, I was born in the suburbs of London in a Hindu family. Wembley was an interesting place because it was filled with so many different cultures: Hindus, Muslims, Christians, um, so many different nationalities. And I learned a lot just by interfacing with so many different types of people. For those of you who live in Northwest London and know Wembley, I went to Copeland School. I was just driving past it today, and it's actually been bulldozed, unfortunately. But I had many memories there growing up in Wembley. But one thing that happened is, from a young age, I was always questioning life. I was always kind of looking at the world. I would see suffering in the world, and I would always question, why is there suffering in the world? Why do people have to go through such difficulties? If a God exists, why do bad things happen to good people? So I guess life was not always clear to me, why we're here, where happiness is to be found. So from a young age, I was always exploring spiritual things. I was talking to my friends. When I was 15, I started reading spiritual books. As you can see here in the second picture on the left, I ended up going to university. I studied computer science and management. I studied at UCL, University College London. And through my university years, my spiritual curiosity was increasing even more. And when I graduated and I was 21, here you can see in the third picture, I had a job lined up in the corporate world, but instead I decided to go to India. And I decided to spend 6 months traveling, exploring, and living in a monastery in India, just to disconnect from the world and try to really understand my purpose. And then here in the final picture, you see me a few months later. This was in 2002. I came back to London, and I decided to become a full-time monk at the age of 21. And sometimes people ask me, what was it that made you, like, what? And of course there would be multiple things, but I would say the first thing is, the first lesson on my journey was that I wanted to start with why. Sometimes what happens in life is we don't ask the question why enough. Why am I here? Why do I exist? Why does this world exist? Why is it that even when most people achieve all their goals, they don't find happiness and contentment? And why, what am I meant to do in this world? So in Sanskrit, there's a beautiful word called dharma, and it's mentioned that every single person has a dharma, has a unique purpose to fulfill in the world. And oftentimes we go on our life journey, but we don't find that purpose. We don't take time to question, what is my purpose? And therefore, we don't then achieve the totality of our life. So what I often tell people, they ask me, what time do you wake up in the morning? I say, as monks, we wake up at 4 a.m. And they say, how can you wake up so early? I said, we have a really good alarm clock. And the best alarm clock in the world is purpose. Because when we have something that we're really trying to achieve in the world, then we have a hunger and enthusiasm which makes us jump out of bed. So the first lesson I learned on my journey is, before you embark on the journey, question why, and find your purpose. And what the ancient scriptures from the East explain is that each one of us have a purpose in this world, we have a certain occupation, a certain contribution, a certain unique talent and ability and personality, which we need to use to make the world a more beautiful place. So we each have a purpose in this world, but what the scriptures also explain is we each have a purpose beyond this world. In other words, we're all spiritual beings, the ancient teachers tell us. And as spiritual beings, we're actually meant to be journeying towards another world, an eternal world, a metaphysical world. And this life is an opportunity to journey towards that uh, deeper spiritual reality. So the first thing I want to share with you on my journey, the first lesson I learned is always start with why. And when I went to India and disconnected as a monk, I was really trying to find my why. So I became a monk, and one of the most amazing things that I had the opportunity to do as a monk is study books and study ancient wisdom. So when I was 15, as I mentioned to you, I started reading different spiritual books, and I started reading books like the Bible, the Quran, and I found them all profound and all actually very, very similar in many, many ways, because in my maturity now, hopefully, I can kind of sense that there's a unity and diversity between all the religious and spiritual traditions of the world. And books became fascinating for me. And one of the books which fascinated me the most is the Bhagavadgita, which is an ancient Sanskrit literature spoken between Krishna and a warrior on a battlefield named Arjuna. And this book has inspired me and helped me to understand so many things about life. And so when I became a monk, a lot of my time was spent immersed in studying spiritual wisdom. And what one of the monks told me when I entered the monastery, he said, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss events, but great minds discuss wisdom. And he was explaining that if we take the time to explore ancient wisdom, whatever religion that may be, whatever spiritual tradition that may be, then what we'll find is that in exploring that ancient wisdom, we actually get many of the answers to the questions that each one of us will inevitably ask in our life. And so I would say the second lesson that I learned on the journey is that before looking forward and planning your life, it will pay to look backward. Look back to look forward. And here Ivan Pavlov says, if you want a new idea, read an old book. And so the second thing I really, really want to share with all of you this afternoon is that there's an incredible treasure house of wisdom from the teachers of the past, from the traditions of previous generations, from the ancient wisdom literature that all the theologies of the world have left us. And these books, this wisdom, can actually help us to become more empowered on our journey forward. And so one of the main things that we continue to do every single day, even now as monks, is we spend some time every day reading from ancient books of wisdom, because we find them to be so powerful, so relevant, so practical, and so effective in actually helping us to live more meaningful lives. So that's the second lesson I'd like to share with you. So on my journey as a monk, I joined as a 21-year-old monk. I spent the formative years of my life as a monk reading and absorbing spiritual wisdom. And then what happened in my life is I started doing something which I thought I would never do. I grew up as a very shy person. I grew up as a very introverted teenager. And when I became a monk, they told me that part of what monks do is they share wisdom with other people. And for me, that was really coming out of the comfort zone, because for me to do public speaking and share knowledge with people, that was just, to some extent, just really against my personality. But as I began doing it and sharing whatever I had learned, here on the top right, you see I used to teach at Haberdasher's School. Here on the top left is Ernst and Young. On the bottom left are media interviews that I've done. Bottom middle is corporate events that we regularly do. And the bottom right is teaching to our communities and congregations. Public speaking became one of the things that I grew to love. And I do this every single day now. Not a day goes by where I'm not having the opportunity to share knowledge with others. But the lesson I learned is that we have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. I never thought I'd be able to do that. I never thought that would be something that I could contribute to the world. But when I became okay with going into the uncomfortable zone, when I became okay with going into the unknown, when I became okay with coming out of the normal stuff that I've been doing to explore something beyond, although it was difficult, it actually gave me the most growth. And so I would encourage all of you on your journey, as I'm sure all of you have often done, take a risk. Don't be afraid to try something different. They say the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, "We've always done it this way." So don't get locked into just staying in your comfort zone. We say those who are convenience focused are experience starved. So Christopher Columbus, he says, you can never cross the ocean until you have the courage to lose sight of the shore. And so it's another learning that came on my journey, that learned to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, because often those uncomfortable situations are the ones that give you the most growth. So sharing wisdom became part of my life, and eventually sharing wisdom in different forums and trying to really make the world a better place. What happened over time is I had the opportunity to meet very, very eminent people. Here on the top left, I had the great fortune of meeting the Queen. Here on the top right, the current Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. On the bottom left, the previous Prime Minister, David Cameron. Here on the bottom right, an event at the Parliament. And it was amazing speaking to the leaders and eminent people about spiritual wisdom, because we would have often fascinating conversations where they would be very enthusiastic to know what solutions can ancient wisdom give to make the world a better place today. And as I continue to go around the world trying to meet with leaders and influential people, sharing wisdom is so exciting and so rewarding, because I find that most intelligent people and influential people are recognizing the need more than ever for there to be more spirituality in the world. And so another learning on my journey is that we need wisdom that breathes. And what Albert Einstein once said very profoundly is, we can't solve the problems of the world by using the same type of thinking that created them in the first place. So we can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. So sharing wisdom with the world, universal spiritual insights, is such a beautiful way of actually solving many of the problems we see in the world. There's racism, there's environmental problems, there's economic disparity, there's crime, there's depression, there's physical health problems that people go through. And what we'll find is that when we take ancient spiritual knowledge and apply that to the world, then what can happen is it can really create beautiful solutions. So the world, which is suffocating from materialism, really needs wisdom that breathes to give that spiritual injection into the world. Along my journey, one thing that's been very profound for me is the help of other teachers. One thing that I've realized in my life is that nobody is self-made. Each of us require very, very kind-hearted individuals in our life who can bring out our potential that we don't know is there. And therefore, having a teacher, having a coach, having a mentor, having a guide, having people in your life who can give you feedback and people who can really help you to see the potential in yourself that you can't maybe detect. Those kind of people in your life are the greatest blessing, because what those people can do is awaken a potential that you're not aware of. And so I would say another great lesson that I've learned in my life is that help gives hope. Try not to walk the journey of life alone. An African proverb says, if you want to walk fast, walk alone. But if you want to walk far, walk with many. And so have many guides, have many mentors, coaches on your journey who can help. And they say two things say a lot about you: what you make people feel inside of them and what you bring out of them. So if you find a person who makes you feel amazing within yourself, about yourself, and they help you to bring out the best of yourself, then those types of people are very, very valuable. And we can also try to be that kind of person for other people. We can also try to help others just as people have helped us. And what will say the most about us is what we make people feel inside of them after interacting with them, and what we're able to help bring out of them after interacting with them. And so this is another learning on my journey, that always look for help, because nobody is self-made. And the final learning I want to give you on my journey is that as monks, what we try to do every single year is we try to take some time to disconnect. We usually take a month where we just disconnect from the world and really try to spend some time clarifying our purpose, clarifying our inner values, and trying to plan a more conscious way forward in our life. When I went to India as a young monk, I once met a yogi, and he gave me a bit of advice for my spiritual journey. He said, every year, disconnect for 1 month. Every week, disconnect for 1 day. And every day, disconnect for 1 hour. And he said, if you disconnect, then you can reconnect with the world in a better way. So I would encourage everyone to spend some time in solitude, spend some time in reflection, spend some time meditating, spend some time maybe journaling and writing your own thoughts. Because oftentimes what happens is we're so busy in life, but we're not actually learning from life. We're not digesting life. We're not observing life and becoming wiser, because we don't have that space to disconnect. In the ancient science of Ayurveda, which is a medicinal art, it says that half of your stomach should be filled with food, 1/4 of your stomach should be filled with water, and 1/4 of your stomach has to be free with air. There needs to be 1/4 of space, because if that space is not there, then the digestion can't take place. So we should ensure that our life is not so congested that we don't have time to disconnect. And that's the final lesson I want to give all of you for today. Disconnect to connect. Joshua Graham says, I survived because the fire inside of me burned brighter than the fire around me. Life is chaotic. Life will be full of so many challenges. Life will be full of unexpected occurrences and uncertainties that we can't eradicate. But what we can do is we can disconnect for some time and empower and elevate our own inner world. And when we've elevated and empowered our own inner world, then when we go to the outer world, we'll be much more equipped to deal with all of those fires and those chaos and those challenges that are there. So in conclusion of my journey, I tried to share with you a few of those points. And these were some of the lessons that I thought to bring out for all of you today. Number one, start with why. Number two, be comfortable with the uncomfortable. Number three, look back to look forward. Number four, we need wisdom that breathes in the world. Number five, help gives hope. And number six, disconnect to connect. And I hope maybe some of these, what we call in Sanskrit, these are called sutras, which are short sentences, which can have profound meaning for you. So I hope some of these have some meaning for you and can help you in your own journey of life. Because remember, every hero has to go through those different elements to achieve something amazing. And remember, everyone can be a hero. Everyone has that potential, but it just means we have to live and navigate our journey in a much more conscious, in a much more purposeful, and in a much more defined way. And each of us have that potential. So thank you so much. I'm really, really appreciative to have this opportunity to be with all of you. I recognize it's the middle of the day and you're all very, very busy, but you took the time out to give me this opportunity to share. So I'm deeply grateful and look forward to connecting with all of you again. So I'll stop my presentation here and I'll hand back over to Kosh to kind of see whether we have time for a bit of chat. Perhaps some of you have some questions, maybe you have some comments, or maybe you have something else that you'd like to share with us this afternoon. So,
hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Hardik.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. Thank you, Swamiji, for the talk. That's really inspiring. I just wanted to say that your journey demonstrates that we are all more closer to God than we might think. Transitioning from what we might believe as an everyday sort of, corporate job to actually taking that spiritual journey. So yeah, thanks for making it real for us.
Thank you so much, Hardik. Yeah, the Bhagavad Gita is very interesting because Arjuna is very much a person of the world, and he feels as though to be spiritual, he needs to eject himself from the world. But the amazing thing is that Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita actually explains that you don't need to necessarily change your external life. Of course, I became a monk and I did do that external change. But actually, you don't have to change your life. You simply have to find the most natural way of living with it. If that's having a family, having a job in the world, that's perfectly fine. But you just need to see how you can use that in a spiritual way, use that in a way in which you can serve others, serve the world. And if we learn to connect everything we're doing in life to a higher objective and a higher purpose, then we can very much be in the world and at the same time very, very spiritual. It doesn't require huge external changes. Yeah. Thank you so much, Hardik. Appreciate that. I think there's a question on the chat there. Shall I take that one?
Yes, this is from Salman Khan, the Bollywood actor who's joined us.
Thank you so much for your nice question. Why do good people suffer? Yeah, this is a question that has been asked for generations. In fact, there's a whole field of study known as theodicy, And this whole field of study is asking the question that if there's a benevolent, all-powerful, all-knowing God, then why do people have to suffer in the world? According to the ancient teachings, this life we're living is a chapter of a longer story. Now, if you think about every story, it has many, many chapters, and some chapters are very educational, some chapters are very, very enjoyable, and some chapters have their tragic moments as well. And all of those chapters make up the journey. And so, according to the Bhagavad Gita, this chapter of life is one chapter of a longer story. So sometimes what is mentioned is that every single occurrence, event, experience, emotion that we're going through now is part of our evolution. Of course, that's hard to accept sometimes because we don't want to see anyone suffer. But the reality is sometimes suffering is that which brings us the most deepest insights. If you sometimes look back in your life and you ask yourself, when did I grow the most? Usually we grow in times of adversity. And so it's mentioned in the ancient traditions that suffering, although undesirable in many ways, is also another way in which we evolve our consciousness. And therefore, the Bhagavad Gita talks about concepts of reincarnation and concepts of karma, that we live multiple lives and that whatever we're going through now has a deeper educational purpose, which helps us to evolve towards what we're meant to be. And so essentially the answer to why people suffer is that we suffer as another means to elevate our consciousness. Hope that helps in some way. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Coach, is there another question? Or?
Yeah, I've just put it on the chat. Did you want to read it out?
Okay, I
Keshava
can read
Swami?
that. What difficulties and challenges have I faced in my spiritual journey, and how did I overcome those obstacles and challenges? Yeah. I think many challenges are there, definitely. But I think one of the biggest challenges I had in my life is, and probably all of us have in our life, is temptation. They say we have a choice in life whether to listen to our loudest desire or whether to listen to our deepest desire. One of the monks also once said to me, "Don't give up what you want most for what feels good now." And so I think one of the biggest challenges that we all face in our spiritual journey is the challenge of temptation, because oftentimes we fall prey to those things which we know are not going to serve us in the ultimate sense, but we still succumb to them. So what's helped me to overcome temptation? The first thing I would say is having people I can be very honest with. When I have a failure, when I have a success, when I feel like I'm on the edge and I don't know what to do, to always have someone to speak to, I find helps to clarify my deeper desires and helps to overcome these situations where we fall prey to temptation and distraction. So the first thing that's helped me is openness, having friends that I can be open with. Another thing that's helped me to overcome temptation is creating the right lifestyle for myself. Oftentimes what we do is we're trying to overcome certain temptations, but we surround ourselves in environments, we surround ourselves with certain energies, we surround ourselves with certain types of people that basically agitate and ignite these desires within us in a deeper way. And so I found that by creating the right lifestyle, these thoughts and disturbances of temptation actually come lower and lower. And the third thing that's helped me to overcome temptation is by experiencing something better. So oftentimes there are many material things that kind of distract and deviate us, and we try to just keep a distance from them. And that may work for some time, but the real way to overcome that temptation is when we experience something much better. And so I found that through my spiritual practices, I've been able to actually experience something so much better that the material types of temptation become more and more insignificant. So, yeah, so, something to share with you about that.
Thank you,
Hope that
Keshava
helps.
Swami.
Yes.
There's one more question on the chat if you want to read,
Okay,
Maharaj.
that's Rakesh. Yeah, okay. Let me read out Rakesh's question. Rakesh says, Bhagavad Smaran to all. I'm an introverted person who supports with local charitable causes in my spare time. I want to be able to improve on my vocal skills in front of audiences. Where can I speak without having that presentation fear and freezing? What can I do to improve on this? Thank you so much, Rakesh. That's such a genuine and thoughtful question. Rakesh, as I said, you have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable. They say you overcome your fears by facing your fears. I was also an introverted person. Public speaking was definitely not what I had as my number one. Yeah, I think I was addressing Rakesh's point about public speaking. Is that correct? Is that where you left me off?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just mentioning that, Rakesh, I feel like you just have to become comfortable with the uncomfortable, as I was mentioning. You overcome your fears by facing your fears. And what I found in my time is that I was also a very introverted, very shy person. Public speaking was not what I imagined I would do in my life. But one person once said to me something that really changed the way I look at it. He said, when you go onto a stage to address a group of people, there's a certain energy which comes up in your heart. Now, he said, when you go onto stage and that energy comes up, if you're meditating on what will go wrong, then you'll turn up on the stage and you'll be extremely nervous. But he said, when you walk up onto stage with that energy and you start focusing on what you could go right, how you could make an amazing contribution, how you can actually do something beautiful for someone else, then he said, when you stand up on stage, you'll be excited. And what he said to me is that excitement and nervousness is actually coming from the same energy, but it's just what we're meditating on. So what I try to do now when I do public speaking is it's always nerve-wracking. There's always some butterflies in the stomach. But I meditate on how through this opportunity to address others, I can actually make a positive contribution to someone's life. And then what happens is instead of being nervous, you become excited. But ultimately, Rakesh, I think you become more confident by just being confident. The more you address an audience, the more you become comfortable with sharing your ideas. I think also the more that you're convinced about what you're sharing with others gives you that confidence to also speak. Oftentimes, we're not confident to speak because we're not confident about what we're speaking about. But when we have faith, when we know that I have something which has really transformed my own life, then I'll be much more equipped to actually confidently share that with others. And so, yeah, these are some thoughts, Rakesh. I hope that helps in some way. Thank you so much. Coach, I know we're at 12:50. Should we continue going on? Because I see more questions on the chat.
Keshava Swami, we'll be so happy to have you for the whole afternoon. It also depends on your time. If you can spare an extra few minutes, we'll be so grateful.
Yeah.
There was a question by Vatsal and followed by
Vatsal, let's go with
Runa.
Vatsal's question. So Vatsal asks, can you share a few ideas to disconnect where one can stop thinking about professional work and personal things? Thank you so much, Vatsal. That's such a beautiful question. Well, the first thing I want to share with you, Vatsal, is deeply consider joining the 5 a.m. club. What we do as monks is that every single day we try to rise before the sun. The sun is said to be the source of all energy in the universe. And when we rise with the sun, then what happens is we draw on that energy. So they say if you rise with the sun, then you'll double your productivity, you'll triple your creativity, and you'll in all ways become more effective. But one beautiful thing about the early morning is the quietness, the solitude. Before the world is moving, before all the messages are hitting your phone, before the craziness of all the, inevitable challenges come, if we spend some time just exploring our inner world in that early morning time, then it's very, very powerful. So what I recommend, Vatsal, is try to do that if you're not already doing it. Try to spend some time in solitude every single morning. The early morning energy is very, very powerful. And what do you do in that energy? What I tell people is do 4 things: move, meditate, read, and reflect. Move means you can do some yoga, you can do some breathing exercise, just get your physical system moving, get the energy flowing. Second thing is meditate. You can do breath control, you can visualize something. We do a type of meditation called mantra. 3, read. Try to read books of wisdom. And remember what I said in the talk, look back to look forward. If you want a new idea, go to an old book. And the 4th thing is reflect. You can do some journaling and reflect what happened yesterday. What did you learn from it? What did you learn from yesterday that will make you live today in a different way? Those are the 4 things. Move, meditate, read, reflect. Early morning, best time to disconnect. Hope that helps. There could be other things, but I'm just giving you one that I think could help. Thank you, Vatsal. Thank you so much.
Keshava Swami, we have a really nice question from Gurdeep, and I think it's something that everybody faces one time in their lifetime. Perhaps if you could address that question.
Okay. So Gurdeep is asking, what advice could we give on coping with grief due to the loss of a loved one? Yes, this is probably one of the hardest things that everyone will have to go through in their life. And the first thing what I tell people is that have good friends around you. The grieving process means that we have to be able to share our emotions. We have to process our emotions. And the best way to do that is to have people around you who you can speak to. And so one of the worst things that people do in times of grief is that they distance themselves from other people. And they say that loneliness, in the world now, they say loneliness is more harmful to your health than smoking 30 cigarettes a day. And so the first thing I would say, Gurdeep, is try to surround yourself with very positive people. The second thing is there's a certain acceptance in grief where we say, number one, life is never going to be the same. But number two, life can still be beautiful. And so one of the keys in going through that process of grief is to, number one, accept that life is never going to be the same. And we don't have to deny that. But what we can also accept and embrace is that life can still be beautiful. One of the reasons we don't come out of grief is because we don't have a vision of going forward. We don't have another beautiful thing to aim for in our life. So we should take the relationships that we've had and use all of that love and empowerment that we received in that relationship to go on and do more amazing things in the world and have other beautiful relationships. So that's the second thing I would say, have a vision for the future. And the third thing I would say is grief is just something that takes time. Tomorrow, if I had a cut on my hand, I could put a plaster on it. I could do all kinds of things. But ultimately, all I have to do is wait for that wound to heal. And that you can't speed it up. That just takes the course of time. And so it's very, very important in grief just to understand that it's going to take time. And I can't expect that I'm just going to intellectually make myself okay in 1 month. It doesn't work like that. The system, our own psyche, takes time to process these things. So Gurdeep, those are, I guess, the three things I'd share with you. Number one, have good friends. Number two, have a vision of a future. And number three, try to just understand that it's a process of time. Yeah, hope that helps.
Thank you so much. That was such a lovely answer, Keshava Swami. And also, just reflecting on losing loved ones, I do recall reading that during the COVID lockdown, where many people had lost their loved ones, or perhaps out of frustration, being locked down and not being able to see their friends, there was an increase of about 28% in people's faith because of the difficulties they were facing as well. So, do you think a spiritual journey could be the cause of, or rather, could distress be also the cause of your spiritual journey? And is it the primary goal of attaining a spiritual journey?
Yeah,
When you're,
sometimes also losing someone, although it's a very, very difficult experience, what it also does is it naturally brings us to a point of questioning. You see, if there's one thing that makes us question life the most, it's death. Because at death, we lose everything. At death, we leave everything behind. At death, everything that we worked so hard for is almost snatched away from us in a moment. And therefore, death and going through the grief of losing a loved one is also an incredible opportunity to begin to question life and question purpose and question what is the meaning? Why are we here? Why do we die? Why is there suffering? And is there some place or some kind of spiritual situation where I don't have to experience these things which seem so unnatural and artificial? So that's also definitely a very profound point. Yes, thank you, Kosh.
thank you. Keshava Swami, we're just coming to an end. Could you just explain a little bit about the online courses that you're doing about Think Gita?
Yes, we started a course last week called Life Hacks from the Bhagavadgita. And so it's a 6-week course. And last week we talked about the school of manifestation. This week we're going to be talking about the spirituality of money. Then we're going to be talking about the science of letting go in reference to Gurdeep's question. Later on, we'll be talking about the secret of communication in answer to Rakesh's question about public speaking. And then we'll be talking about the solitude of friendship, which is actually, I think that was Aruna's question, about how to be surrounded by good friendships. So actually, many of the questions that all of you have asked, we're actually going to be addressing them in more detail. So I think Kosh has put the kind of flyer on the chat. So you're welcome to join. It's online every Thursday from like 8 till 9:30. We give you recordings. There's another session in the week where you can ask questions. And through these 6 sessions, you not only get an insight into the Bhagavad Gita, but you also get the opportunity to learn many of these life hacks which can help you to navigate the journey that you're on. So I think all the details are there and you're welcome to join. And I think Kosh can help you if you're not sure how to do that. Thank you so much.